When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams, how to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer, where he lectured to much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till, rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. I heard that poem first about 25 years ago. It's by Walt Whitman. And my first impulse was, Walt, don't you walk out of my lecture. Come back, sit down, sit down, sit down. But actually, it turned out to be a really valuable and important thing for me to experience. I want to invite everybody, please, who's in the back to come sit, because I'm going to be walking around like crazy. I can't stand still. And so please, everybody come on over. I want you to get up and do whatever you need anytime during the talk. Do not feel any kind of need to sit, okay? Because I got to rise and glide out once in a while too. Okay? In fact, my students are always a little bit puzzled as to why I keep walking around when I talk. But this is not a group of students. You are professionals, you are people who matter. You are people whose expertise dwarfs my own in your areas. I am learning from you. I have already learned more about land management in the first 20 minutes of coffee break than I have in my entire academic career. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much. So I set an alarm for myself. I technically have 45 minutes, but I only put 35 minutes on the clock. Okay, so I'll stop relatively soon and not worry about things, because I want to have this conversation with you all. I want to learn more from you, and I want to hear your questions. So please tell me all these things that matter, because as I'm connecting the universe with our land and our home, our planet, there are things that I'm going to say today that I've never talked about in public. Because the connection is what's so cool, and I really want to thank Katie and everybody at Highstead and all of you all for being here today to hear that connection, to figure out something that we haven't heard before, and maybe we'll make the world a better place. Maybe make our homes a better place. So where I actually heard that poem for the first time was in this book. Oh, it's pretty big, okay? It's The Invisible Universe. It was published 25 years ago, 26 now, I think, by an art book publisher. And it contains astrophotographs. Here's just one. Okay. My colleague David Malin in Australia, who started as a technician doing photographs and microscopy and so forth, wound up becoming one of the leading astronomical researchers of his time in the late 1980s and 90s, because he used photography in creative and unexpected ways to reveal parts of the universe or ways of seeing the universe that none of us had actually done before. Today we do that using digital technology. But here's my thought. Here's my distinguished colleague, David Malin, putting in his book this poem by Walt Whitman saying, you know what? I got bored of that lecture. I'm out of here, right? And I was like, so I have to think about this. Why did he do that? Why did David, the astronomer, who might be mortified if Walt had gotten up and left his lecture, right? Obviously, he wouldn't have been mortified if he left. Why did he put it in there? It made me think deeply. And to this day, it's one of my favorite examples of how poetry can actually affect us all in unexpected ways. I finally came to the realization, at least for me, that Walt was bored because the dude was just talking. He was just listening, right? He heard the learned astronomer. He saw the proofs and figures arranged before him. He was shown how to add and multiply. He was sitting, listening to the astronomer. He couldn't take that. He couldn't learn that way. He had to get up and he had to go out. Clearly, he loves astronomy. He stood under the stars. He cared about that space. He just couldn't sit there and do nothing and be receiving that information. Now, Walt does other stuff in his work, which is highly anti-intellectual, anti-educational. We kind of part company that way. But I understand what he says. And all this time since then, in my 25 years since I first read that poem in this book, I realized I have to do that too with everybody. I need to communicate with people to have them understand why this matters. Why should I care? And why should I act? So this is all our home. From an astronomical perspective, from a cosmic perspective, from a universal perspective, we're here. I know that many of you are familiar with the works of Carl Sagan. He wrote in his book, A Pale Blue Dot. Right? He spent a lot of energy, political capital at NASA to turn Voyager spacecraft around, to take a picture of the Earth from billions of miles away. This was in the 1980s, long before we had our virtual reality, CGI, computer stuff where we imagined we could be anywhere in the universe and see anything. This was a digital photograph, grainy, tiny. And he said, see that little dot there? That's home. Everyone you ever knew, everyone you ever will know, everyone who has ever lived is in that one tiny dot. And so it's still true today. As much as we'd love to go live on Mars and the moon someday, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay. So this is home. But is it? When you are on the earth, when I walk the earth, do I feel like I'm at home? Do I feel, as Katie said, safe? Do I feel the sound of crickets? Do I hear that beauty? Do I sense it? Do I feel like I'm home? It turns out that the human community is also part of the universe, right? Yes, my research and my work, I work on distant galaxies that are crashing into each other and the supermassive black holes inside them and the way that they affect the birth and death of stars and planets. That's way the heck out there, isn't it? But this is the universe too. We live here. We are all part of the universe, and the universe is part of us. We are made of the same elements that were formed originally in the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago and then processed inside the hearts of stars through nuclear fusion and nucleosynthesis to become what we are today. Every single atom and molecule that makes us formed in stars. That means that each one of us is as awesome and as ordinary as every star in the sky, as every galaxy in the universe. All the decisions we make, all the things we do in our lives are as relevant to the universe as an exploding star or a colliding galaxy or a supermassive black hole gobbling entire chunks of the universe and spraying out huge amounts of energy in its wake. So do we feel that way? Do you and I, on a daily basis, do you feel like, yeah, baby, I'm part of the universe? Because if we did, then we would be home. But we don't. Absolutely not. In fact, most of the time we probably don't. Why? In my opinion, and I wish we had last year's speaker here tell me whether I'm right or wrong, because neuroscience is really what I'm about to talk about. In my opinion, it is because we humans think of home in two broad categories. One, the idea that Katie mentioned in the talk earlier, the sense of belonging, the sense of safety, the sense of our family, the things, the people we love and care about and who care about us. The other sense is ownership. Do we own this place? Is it ours? And when it does not become ours, by whatever reason that we humans have designed, is it no longer our home? How do we react to that? It's taken from us. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but it's not ours anymore because we don't own it. Now, the universe has no such compunctions. What does it care whether we own that home or not? But I care, right? Where I live, when I walk into my home, that's mine. But you know what? It's only been mine for a teeny weeny length of time. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. The human species is about 4 million years old. And I have had the privilege of owning that little plot of land with that little bit of wood that's kind of sagging a little bit because the subfloor has been decaying for 100 years for about 2 decades. And yet that means the world to me, doesn't it? If someone came in tomorrow and removed me and said, "This is now mine, it's not yours anymore, bye," how would I feel? I wouldn't feel home anymore, would I? I'm fortunate. I have a wonderful family. I have wonderful friends. I have a society. I have a community. I'm part of that. That feels really good. So if indeed somehow I lost my home physically for some reason, I wouldn't feel that bad. I'd be all right. But that's not true in general, is it? That's not true overall. The universal perspective reminds us that ownership is fleeting, yet so vital to what we feel when we're trying to think about whether or not we're home. There's a lot of astronomy that we can talk about today, but there's no way that in 35 minutes we can cover even a tiny fraction of the amazingly beautiful things that have driven me to choose the career that I've chosen. But I want to talk a little bit about how we as astronomers, we human beings as a community, have grappled with land issues, with ownership, with stewardship. And maybe from that, I would love to draw bridges and talk more about how we, as our scientists, and maybe with our universal point of view, might be able to shed some light on some of the things that all of you all are doing, the incredible, wonderful, and important work that makes this home truly all of our homes. I'm going to start with this mountain. It's in the Pinaleño Range in southeastern Arizona. At the top there is Mount Graham, Graham. It's about 11,000 feet. It's one of those sky islands that's in the south. After the glaciers retreated, the ecosystems basically went upward in altitude as the temperatures increased. So today, up beyond, about a mile or two up, these sky islands contain ecosystems that really should be in Canada. It's beautiful. Mount Graham has been logged. It has been used for Bible camps. It has been used for tourism. It is about 60,000 acres of it, if I believe correctly, is still part of the National Forest System. And at the very top, there's just beautiful, pristine area, and there is a refuge of several hundred acres, I believe, for the Mount Graham red squirrel. But that was put there not because we really wanted it to happen. It's because of this. The Large Binocular Telescope is the world's largest telescope on a single mount. It has 2 mirrors, each of them more than 25 feet across. The total collecting area is as if this telescope were almost 40 feet wide. It is amazing. Think about it. 4 inches, telescope like this, maybe on your backyard, 40 feet. It is one of the most powerful and amazing telescopes in the world. It's awesome, and it's great. And when the University of Arizona and its international collaborators wanted to put this telescope on this mountain, there were 9 environmental impact statements studied. There were studies, things like that. A lot of people weighed in. There was conversation. There was controversy. There was anger. People were sure that astronomers were just going to pave the top of the mountain. It was going to be ugly. It was going to drive things away. And during the process, it was discovered that there was an endemic species trapped on this sky island of red squirrel. The Mount Graham red squirrel was there. And so, in the process of creating what were called reasonable and prudent options, I actually read through all of these, back when I was a graduate student. And I'll tell you why in a minute. The refugium would be created. Logging, other kinds of things would be strictly and carefully controlled and limited and managed at the expense of the University of Arizona and its international partners. And the total footprint of this telescope and observatory system, including the road that went up through the forest all the way up there from the town of Safford, would have a total footprint of 8.6 acres out of 60,000 or something like that. Seems reasonable, right? People are like, oh, okay, well, we'll just go ahead and do that. It didn't seem reasonable to a lot of people. And it got worse. Because there were people in the San Carlos Apache tribe that lived in the foothills of this mountain that said, that is our sacred land. You must not do this. And the astronomers, all of those who made these decisions, replied, it's 8.6 acres. We will respect the space. This space has been used for decades. Bible camps, logging, various kinds of usage in the national forest system. And the folks said, no, you cannot put this observatory. You may not do this. You would be violating our ownership of this mountain. A completely fair statement. The University of Arizona's president, around 1991, Manuel Pacheco, decided it was important enough to hold a public forum about this event. And so the public forum happened in a room very similar to this one at the University of Arizona. And people came to speak about what was going on. I was there as a graduate student trying to understand what was happening. See, we astronomers, we love the nature. We love the land. We need these preservations. We want the squirrels to be there. There is under no circumstance that we would ever feel like we want to tread upon anybody's feelings or damage any kind of ecosystem. But here we were in this conflict, uncertain what to do. And then, this is the part where I've never spoken about in public to anybody else. As I was sitting there, up came a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe. And she said, hello, I am in favor of building these telescopes. I strongly support it. We were shocked. I guess some people weren't. I was. She said, this observatory, the plan is good. People at the university and the international partners have spoken with us. We've talked together for months and years. We believe that the road goes through spaces that don't matter. We believe that this telescope is being placed on a peak called Hawks Peak, not the top, but off to the side, where the airflow is better anyway for telescope design. We believe that this will provide us high technology jobs, the opportunities in Safford, Arizona that we just don't have for our tribe. We really, really want this observatory. Then the next person came up, also a member of the San Carlos tribe, and said, don't listen to that person. This place matters to us. It matters to me and my grandmother, Ole, over there. And to all these people, you can't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. Then another person came up from the tribe and said, no, I support the observatory. And you know what? You can't trust those guys in the family over there because their family are all horse thieves. I don't know anybody who owns a horse anymore. Maybe they did, I'm sorry. And then another person came up and said, well, you can't listen to them because they don't even speak the language. And then another person came up and said, we sure do speak the language, and they spoke a little bit, kind of like how Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio did their thing in the primary debate back in 2016, right? I was really taken aback. I didn't understand. And maybe I'm saying this now to work it out in my own mind with you all. I had the tremendous pleasure of being able to hear a few minutes of the conversation of the global majority after dinner yesterday. I was teaching a class in my hotel room online, so I missed dinner. But I was able to come down and just hear of it. And I was just thinking of so many of the things that you were all speaking about. The feelings, the ownership, the things that were taken away, and the fact that this is very personal. In the end, the observatory was built. The footprint is still there. The Mount Graham red squirrel population is being monitored very carefully. It still ranges between about 200 and 300 mating pairs. It's going to be okay, but we're not really sure. But the University of Arizona continues to maintain it. And then as far as the land concerned and the people who feel it, it's hard for me to say. I can't see that. I can't see the observatory there. It's very hard to. In fact, this picture was taken by a hiker, one of those hikers who post online saying things like, yeah, I hiked places I wasn't supposed to hike, ha ha ha. You know, those kinds of folks? There are a few of those. And so he was actually saying, yeah, you know, I wanted to hike the top of Mount Graham, but there's this red squirrel refugium. These red squirrels, they're there, so I can't go. So sorry, everybody. You know, I couldn't go there. He was mad because he lost access because of this protection. But not because it was sacred to him for religious purposes, but because it was sacred to him for being there, for letting it be part of his home for just a little while. It's a very, very, very challenging question for me today even. When I think of Mount Graham, I think of this. This is the mirror that is now in an observatory. It is one of the next generation mirrors, not exactly the same one. But I think of Tony and Jelko and Chuck. And I think of Sydney. I think of Suzanne. I think of Bruce, who wiped the floor with me in racquetball. That's what I think of, right? So Mount Graham is an observatory, but it's people trying to figure out the universe, trying to gain and improve our understanding of that universal view. These are not cruel colonizers. These are not people who want to dominate and assert their dominance on people who can't do it. They're just you and me. Many of them are my mentors. All of them are my friends. How many people are here from Smith College? I have a wonderful colleague, James Lowenthal, who is a professor at Smith College. He is a chair, has been for a long time, for the American Astronomical Society's Sustainability Committee. He was a graduate student with me here at the same time. We had some conversations back then, all of us did. What are we supposed to do? How do we make this so that it's for everybody? I think of Mount Graham as this. At night, when you do hear the crickets, when the lights are there, that's what all this is. The sky, the stars, the places. What can we do? How can we share? Even if the majority of the San Carlos Apache there approved and supported and wanted the observatory to be built, what about those others? How do we help them feel that they're home? one of the people there, even very, very upset, he pulled out an ancient text, I don't know, maybe 100 years old. And he wrote about, this text was a verbal account of a massacre of Apache in that area a century ago by the US cavalry. And he said, if this telescope goes up, it is just one more thing. No, it's not. At least not to me. But to him it was. And that is valid. That is meaningful. He was not in that conversation, perhaps, that the other San Carlos Apache members were. He maybe was there, but couldn't take it and was unhappy with it. That's tough. What should we do as people who care? We want to make this home for everyone. What do we do? So this is again Mount Graham. This is the mountain that we're there today. We coexist all right. Here's another mountain. This is Mauna Kea on the big island of Hawaii. And here, if you look carefully, you can see the telescopes. Mauna Kea is the best place in the world to do astronomy. Absolutely is. And so, in 1968, around the time I was born, the University of Hawaii and the government of Hawaii got a lease for the top of the mountain to build telescopes. Now, it's a double-peaked mountain, in case you weren't aware. The actual supposed top peak, the one that really does have significant spiritual value, is untouched. The secondary peak, a couple hundred yards away, is where these telescopes are. And for 50 years, telescopes kept getting put on one after the other, making incredible groundbreaking discoveries, new technologies, new ways of understanding the universe. There was always conversation with the people on the island. The indigenous Hawaiian folks always appeared to have a seat at the table when these conversations happened. But something deteriorated. We astronomers as a community lost sight of some of that. And so, about 10 years ago, when the United States National Science Foundation wanted to build a brand new telescope on that mountain, resistance came. New resistance. Not the folks that had always been sort of working with the folks there. People from elsewhere, people from other islands, people from the mainland. They came forward and they were strident in their objection. No more telescopes on this mountain. The astronomy community said, hey, this is just one more. We're not even taking out space we're not allowed to do. We're going to be right where we are. In fact, this is going to be on a plateau that's lower than the peak of the other telescopes. They said, no, you can't do this anymore. You didn't take good enough care of the mountain in the past 40, 50 years. You've got to put no more on. It was a vigorous and a new an opposition for which astronomers were unprepared. It is to my personal regret and shame that at that time, one of our most distinguished members of the astronomical community, who was based in California, sent out an incredibly insensitive and destabilizing message to the community, characterizing these protesters as somehow savages, subhuman, with pitchforks and things like that, putting it as if it were, the villagers going after the Frankenstein's monster, something like that. It was just terrible. And we didn't do it right. On that mountain today, those other telescopes continue to do amazing work. But this new telescope has not been built. And it will not be on that mountain. All the international partners said, you know what, we really shouldn't do that. And it remains to me an important lesson for me as someone who used to see this telescope, these mountains, as just the thing of beauty. An amazingly wonderful thing with which we are connecting to the universe. A thing which members of the indigenous community in Hawaii, perhaps even the majority, said, this is bringing us technology. It's bringing us jobs. It's bringing us closer to the universe. Our ancestors were explorers too. As the Polynesian ancestors of our olden days, they sailed, they measured by the stars. They wondered what was there. This is one way of us honoring our ancestors by using this sacred mountain to learn more about the universe. But there were people, and many people, who said no. What do we do? How do we astronomers think about that? So when I came here yesterday and heard all the wonderful conversation yesterday and started meeting folks, I wound up staying up really late last night, everybody. I don't have a lot of sleep right now, but it's because I really had to think about what I wanted to ask you all. What does this mean for us? The universe is awesome. We are part of it, but we also coexist here on Earth as home. Nobody lives on the mountain anymore. No human beings live permanently. People who are their longest any given time are the astronomers. But the native Hawaiian people and others around them, other Polynesian folks, other activists, still own that place somehow. It's still part of them. The same is true with Mount Graham. How is that place home for them? How is the world home for all of us when there are some of us who don't feel that way? This is a view from Mauna Kea. It's a dark mountaintop. That's the telescope. These are other mountains. Mauna Loa is over here. And that's human habitation, far, far away, creating that glow. We humans are here too. There are probably people spending the vacations of a lifetime there. They're enjoying the place. They probably feel in many ways as home in Hawaii as they ever have or they ever will. That matters so much to them. But what about this mountaintop? How does that work for us? I quoted a Brooklynite. Sorry, guys. A Yankees fan, if the Yankees were around back then. So let me get a New England poet here. What does astronomy have to offer? To ask you all, why do we study this stuff? And Robert Frost said, "O star, the fairest one in sight, we grant your loftiness the right to some obscurity of cloud. It will not do to say of night, since dark is what brings out your light. Some mystery becomes the proud, but to be wholly taciturn in your reserve is not allowed. Say something to us that we can learn by heart, and when alone repeat. Say something." And it says, "I burn." But say with what degree of heat? Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade. Use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you blend. And steadfast it's Keats's eremite, not even stooping from its sphere. It asks a little of us here. It asks of us a certain height. So when at times the mob is swayed to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star to stay our minds on and be stayed. Robert wrote this poem in 1916. He had no idea that nuclear fusion powered our sun. He had no idea that scientifically, decades later, it would be shown that we are made of the things that the stars are made of. That we are part of the universe and it is part of us. But he sensed it back then even. And he said, "Folks, we study the universe because we want it to translate to us so we can understand it and have that connection with the universe so that," in his own words, the universe is our home too. When things are messed up here on the surface, we can look at the stars and say, you and I, we're related. We understand each other. We're part of each other. That's what grows our homes. When we're babies, all we know of home is the little crib that we're in. Maybe one or two people. And then we grow older, and we can step out. We can walk in our room, and then in our house, and then maybe into the yard, and in our neighborhood. And as we grow older and we mature, we ask, what's out there? We go out into our towns, our cities, our homes, our lands, our mountains, our rivers, and then we look up. Everybody who has ever lived looks up at the same sky. And we ask ourselves, where are we? What's out there? That's what Robert Frost is telling us. Find out. Look out there. Ask the stars. And from that, receive that kind of calm, the steadfastness that comes with knowledge and security, and the realization that you're not just a little something floating in the universe, but that you are home. My last few slides are about Vera Rubin. This is an observatory project 30 years in the making. I am about to use the data from this telescope project for the first time since first starting to work on this just after I got my PhD. Vera was 10 years old in this picture. Nice Jewish girl growing up in Philadelphia. By utter coincidence and wonderful chance, one of Vera's cousins came to one of my talks at the New Jersey State Museum a few months ago. And she said, here, look at this. This is Vera. I'm like, wow, right? So this cousin's name is Ellen, and I believe that is Ellen's mom, Louise. So Ellen's much younger. She's our generation. But this is a cousin, a generation removed. Vera wound up becoming one of the most important astronomers in the history of our science. She was the one who confirmed that our universe is made up of huge amounts of matter that are not made up of protons and neutrons and electrons, so-called cosmological dark matter. And in her honor, this telescope, the Vera Rubin Observatory, has been constructed and will come online in Chile on a mountain called Cerro Pachon in just a few months, we hope. It's in its final shutdown phase after commissioning. Hopefully the problem will be solved soon. This observatory, the people who work there, again, my friends, my colleagues, they tried to do it absolutely right from the beginning. Because it was not a mountaintop that others had stewarded before, because it was the first time this was being done, for decades now, since the very inception of this project, we have been going and talking to the indigenous folks, to the Chileans, to the other people that would care about this space. Environmental stuff, indigenous stuff, spiritual things. Really creating an environment which I believe is one of the most inclusive and most diverse and most attempting to do it right kind of projects in all of science. There's still a lot going on, still nothing exactly perfect. But I can look at the Vera Rubin Observatory and know, at least for me, that what she did, breaking barriers, trying to break through all the things that she had to deal with as a woman in science in America in the middle of the 20th century, has led to a place where when I look on this mountaintop, I don't have to feel ambivalent about what am I causing problems with people? What am I doing? Do I know that this is home for everyone? I believe I can say that, yes. We may still be wrong, and there's still always work to do. But that's a star base. I don't know how many of you like Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that. That's a star base on a distant asteroid where humans are trying to reach out into the universe. I look at that and I go, yeah, that's us trying to understand home in the largest, grandest sense, in the most beautiful way that we can. But there are still challenges. It's not absolutely possible. This is a nighttime photo. I don't know if you realize that. It's a long exposure photo, and over there is humans. You see those lights? It's nighttime. Those are people living far, far away from this mountaintop. There's still us. And that's where land management becomes so important. What are we doing here? Can we actually make a place where we all feel home? At that Mount Graham conversation, I actually asked the person who held up and talked about the genocide that he had experienced generations ago amongst his people. I said, I cannot speak for all white men. I can't speak for any white men, actually. But amongst astronomers, we tried. Is there a way we can make this mountain something that we all can be proud of? That it can be a scientific, environmental, spiritual, cultural place where we all can feel at home. He paused for a long time. And he said, we've just been pushed too far. And I was very sad. But I was young. I was a little kid, right? Second-year graduate student. And I was thinking, you know what? We can do this. We can fix this. We can keep trying. Maybe not this generation. Maybe he has suffered too much. But maybe we can talk as children. Maybe we can talk as grandchildren. Maybe we can work together. And of course, there's still a long way to go, isn't there? But this is the universe. This is home. This is a picture taken during commissioning with the Vera Rubin Observatory. In each of these galaxies, which are millions of light years away, there are hundreds of billions of stars. Many of them have planets just like us. Maybe they have life. They won't be just like us because life, as you all know, evolves very differently from place to place. But there's life there too, and maybe they're wondering, are they home? And then back there, those faint dots, those are galaxies too, but not millions of light years away. They are billions of light years away. There is so much out there. Are we home? Are we seeing a picture of our childhood grounds? Sadie Williams had a short and sad life, but she did leave some wonderful poetry. And I just have a couple of lines from this poem, to which she called The Old Astronomer. And I think it represents for me what I hope we all will be able to take away, and I'm eager to hear your questions and comments in the next few minutes that we have left. Are we home? I feel like I am, but I know that there are places and people who don't. But as I look out in the universe, as I study astronomy, as I think about the universe as my home, as the place where I am reminded of what Sadie Williams said, who died of cancer at the age of 30, after her father died, after really kind of a bummer situation in her life. And yet she was still able to see beyond, because she said, though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. For I have loved the stars too truly to be fearful of the night. That is home, everyone. What can we do to make it home for us all? Thank you.